You ever have one of those moments where you forget the password to your phone, laptop, Steam account, or anything of the sort? Then you spend the next few minutes racking your brain trying to remember what your password is, or at least where you wrote it down in case you forgot. And then you find a note that doesn't actually tell you what your password is, but rather it's a puzzle that past you thought would be fun to solve in order to figure out what your password was. Well, I'm sure to some degree that we can all relate to this experience, which means you should be well suited for today's level as we're about to go password hunting. Hello everyone, Professor Scaler here, and welcome to the alternate R5A3 level guide. As always, we're starting off with your loadout, and this time around, I recommend you bring along with you a biotracker, a mine deployer, a C-foam launcher, and then any sentry of your choice. And the reason why I recommend the biotracker is because it's always useful to have one, but more specifically for this level, if you're going for the overload objective, you're going to have to deal with a fair amount of scouts as well as a pretty decent amount of infectious fog, which can hinder your sights quite a bit. And if you go for the secondary objective, you will have to initiate an error alarm towards the tail end of it, and that error alarm will be stuck with you all the way until the very ending of the level. As for the mine deploying C-foam launcher, these are going to be our primary means of dealing with every single one of the alarm doors in this level. Plenty of doors will be able to shut, mine, and C-foam to just simply keep enemies out for even longer, maybe even re-C-foam the doors a little bit during the alarm to just keep them out for even more so, and then once we're ready to let them in or we're out of C-foam, just let the door break open and one or two well-placed mines should deal with most, if not every single one of the enemies. And last but not least, when it comes to that sentry, this is just to give us a little bit of extra firepower. As I said, mines and C-foam will be doing most of the work during the alarm doors if you utilize them properly, but having a sentry for a little bit of extra firepower could definitely help out here or there. Or if you just simply wake up a room with a decent amount of enemies in it and you just want to fall back and place down an auto sentry or whatever type of sentry you brought with you, it's perfectly viable. Just to make sure that whatever type of sentry you do bring with you, you are positioning it properly so you're getting the most out of it. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to find the terminals inside Zone 39 and download all the files from them. And there'll actually be a total of 3 different terminals inside of that zone. However, you and your teammates are going to be starting off inside of Zone 38. And in here, there's really not a whole lot of special stuff, just some regular enemies and a few resources to collect. So make your way throughout the zone, deal with those enemies, grab those resources, and once you make your way to the far northern side of it, you'll find that security door to Zone 39, which is just simply going to be a full team scan. And once you finish the scan and head into the zone, as I said in the middle of the room, you'll be able to find the 3 terminals. However, of these 3, 2 of them are password locked. The only one you actually have access to is the far left one, which you could just hop onto it and download the files from it. The extract command is pretty simple, but the other 2 you won't be able to access until you figure out what their passwords are. Which the terminal in the middle, its password will be located on a terminal inside of Zone 40, and the terminal on the right will have its password located on 2 separate terminals inside of Zone 43. There's also the bulkhead door control and door to the overload sector over on the eastern side of this room, but we don't have a bulkhead key yet, so we can't do anything with it. So instead, we're going to head over to the western side where we'll be able to find the security door to Zone 40, which is also just going to be a full team scan. And as I mentioned earlier, there will be a terminal somewhere inside the zone with the password on it. There are multiple of those, so you'll have to figure out which one is the correct one. And once you know what the password is, just simply send one person back, go onto that middle terminal, put the password in, and then extract the files from it, and then they can go and join up with the teammates. As for everybody else, you're just going throughout Zone 40, clearing out all the enemies in here, as well as keeping an eye out for resources and your very first bulkhead key. And once you have all that, you can then head to the far western side, where you find a security door to Zone 41. This door is going to have a Class 3 cluster alarm tied to it, and as you can see with this map overlay, there's only one possible spawn location for enemies during this alarm, and there are a few different doors we can utilize. So this door right here, I recommend you make sure it's shut, mined, and C-foamed, as the enemies are guaranteed to go through it, and it is a big door, so more enemies will be able to pile up on it. And then when it comes to the 2 doors that lead directly into your room, that northern door, you're going to leave it shut, but you don't have to do anything else. And the southern door, you can either do one of 2 things. You could also shut, mine, and C-foam that door if you would like, or you could just simply maybe shut it and mine it, or just simply leave it open and have your sentry positioned near it. As long as your scan RNG isn't too bad, you'll be able to finish this alarm pretty quickly, so it doesn't really make too big of a difference with however you set up that southern door. Once everything is set up how you want it though, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, and once everything is finished, you can then open up that security security door and head inside of the zone itself. And inside Zone 41, you'll be able to find more enemies and resources, as well as a single scout patrolling about, and you'll also be able to find a few other interesting things. The first one being the bulkhead door control and doors to your main and secondary objectives. And even though we have a bulkhead key, we are not going to want to plug this in quite yet, unless if we are only doing a main objective run, in which case we would plug it into that door control. And the other thing to take note of is the fact that inside the zone is a generator which is tied to the security door to Zone 42. Now, Zone 42 is an optional resource zone with a disinfect station in it, but we don't have a power cell on hand, so we're unable to go in here quite yet. So at this point, really, it's just up to you and your teammates on where you head to next. If you're doing a main objective only run, like I said, you're plugging that into the door control and heading over to the security door to Zone 43. However, if you're doing a prisoner efficiency run, you're going to backtrack to the beginning of the level to the overload door control, as we're going to want to deal with that one first. So if you're someone who's interested in only the main objective portion of this guide, jump to the timestamp that you see on screen. There we will talk about Zone 43 and the rest of the level. But everybody else, we're going to be heading into Zone 231 and getting started on our overload objective. Upon entering into Zone 231, you'll see that your overload objective is to find the generator cluster, which will actually be located inside the zone with you, and bring 3 power cells to it to bring it back online. And those 3 power cells are always going to be located inside Zone 235. Now, aside from the generator cluster itself in 231, there will be more enemies for you to deal with, there will be more resources to collect, and there will also be a fog turbine, which you are going to want to bring with you, as every zone from this point on in this overload sector will have infectious fog in it. Once you've taken care of everything inside this room, you can head over to the security door to 232, which is just simply a full team scan, and open it up. And upon entering into Zone 232, you'll see cocoons all over the ceiling, which indicates that this entire zone is a respawn zone. And in here, there's going to be a fair amount of regular strikers and shooters, as well as a total of 3 scouts. And those scouts will respawn if you kill them. So if you want to, you could make your way through this area, clearing out every single room one by one to keep an eye out for the resources. Or if you're in a pretty decent position, you could just simply make your way through here and just sort of avoid all the enemies. On the southern side of the zone, you'll be able to find a security door to Zone 234, which is just simply a full team scan. So whenever you're ready, head over there. And inside Zone 234, not really a whole lot to take note of. Just simply some more enemies, resources, more infectious fog, so just keep going through with the fog turbine. But at the far southern end of it, you'll be able to find the security door to Zone 235, which will have a Class 5 alarm tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, there are 2 different locations enemies could possibly spawn from. So all 4 of these doors I've highlighted, I recommend you shut every single one of them, then place a mine on the 2 doors that lead directly into your room, but don't seafoam anything quite yet, because the enemies will typically only take one of these 2 doors to get into your room, but which one they take can vary a little bit depending on exactly where they initially spawn from. So I would just say mine them, and if maybe if you want to spray a little bit of seafoam on them, then just do the full team scan, and once it's done, look to see where enemies are coming from with the use of the biotracker, then quickly rush over to that door and seafoam it, and if you want to, you could also re-seafoam it a little bit during the alarm while your other teammates work on the scans. Either way though, once you're ready, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, and once everything has been taken care of, you can head into Zone 235 itself. And inside of there's going to be more resources, more infectious fog, the 3 power cells you're going to need for your objective, as well as a single scout patrolling about in here. So make your way through, deal with those enemies, keeping an eye out for those power cells. If you're having a difficult time finding them, just simply use the terminal in the zone to ping their exact location. And once you have all 3 of the power cells, as well as any of the resources you want, you can then slowly but surely backtrack your way to Zone 231. Keep in mind that Zone 232 was a respawn zone, so when you go back through there, any enemies you killed will be back and alive. But once you make your way back into Zone 231, you're going to want to drop the fog turbine, as there is sometimes a glitch in this level where if you plug the power cells in while you're holding onto the fog turbine, it makes it stop functioning properly. So drop it on the floor and let it sit for a few seconds. Then just simply plug in all 3 of your power cells into the generator cluster, and that will complete your overall objective. There's no scan or alarm or anything special tied to it. However, once you plug all 3 power cells in, it is going to cause the infectious fog in the level to rise up a little bit. Not a whole lot, but it will make things a little bit awkward in some areas. So once you have taken care of that, all that's really left to do is go and grab your second bulkhead key, which will always be located inside Zone 233, which has now unlocked. So make your way back into Zone 232, and this time go to the northern end of it, where you find that security door to 233, and then you can just simply open it up, as there's no scan or anything tied to it. Inside Zone 233, it's just the same thing as before, more infectious fog, more enemies, more resources. There will also be a power cell which you can use to get into that optional resource zone I mentioned earlier, so if that interests you, make sure you bring the power cell with you, and of course, you'll be able to find your second bulkhead key. So go throughout here, grab everything that you want, and once you're done with that, you just simply make your way back into the main objective sector, and then go all the way back to Zone 41. Now, if you don't want to do the optional resource zone, you're just simply going to continue on with your secondary objective. However, those of you who want to head in there, you're going to plug that power cell into the generator, and that will unlock the security door to Zone 42, which is going to have a Class 3 alarm tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, there are a few different locations enemies could spawn from. Don't get confused by that enemy icon that appears to be in the same room as you. That's actually not in the same room. It's the room directly above you, which is 2 rooms away. And as you can see, there's a few different things we're doing with these doors. So these 2 right here, I'm telling you to leave open as we want to preserve them for an upcoming alarm. This door over here we are shutting because this will make it so now the enemies will come in through this entrance, but instead come in through the northern door that we're leaving open. And then when it comes to these 3 doors over here, these 2 you are going to be shutting, but you do not need to mine or seafoam. But this door right down here, this is the one that leads directly into your room. So go on ahead, shut it to mine it and seafoam it. And then you could place your sentry in the northwest corner facing towards that open door. So if any enemies come from that direction, they have to go through the line of fire of the sentry. And if any enemies come from the east, they have to go through that shut, mine, and seafoam door. Once everything has been set up exactly how you need it to, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, and once everything is finished, you can pack up your sentry and head into Zone 42 itself. This zone is just going to be one long rectangular room. There will never be any enemies inside of here, but there will be a lot of resources as well as a disinfect station. You don't necessarily need to take everything with you. I actually like to leave a few resources behind that I can grab a little bit later, but take what you need, and once you have everything, you can then head back to that bulkhead door control that gives you access to the main and the secondary objective, plug your key into it, and then you can do the secondary scan, and that will unlock the bulkhead door to the north to Zone 122. So head over there, open it up as there's no scan tied to it, and head on inside and get started on your secondary objective. And upon entering into Zone 122, you'll see that your secondary objective is to find a specific HSU and collect a DNA sample from it. And that HSU is always going to be located inside Zone 124. As for Zone 122 itself, not really a whole lot to it, just some enemies and resources, as well as a single scout patrolling about. And at the back end of it, you'll be able to find the security door to Zone 123, which will have a Class 5 alarm tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, there's only one possible spawn location for enemies, and there are a few different doors we can utilize. So this door out here, since it is a big door and they are guaranteed to go through it, I recommend you shut it, mine it, and seafoam it. And then when it comes to the 2 doors that lead into your room, make sure both of them are shut, but you're only going to want to mine and seafoam this southern one right here, as this is the door they will always take to get into your room. Assuming both of the doors are kept shut, of course. As for your sentry, just place it in the room facing towards that door that they'll be coming in through, and that's really all you have to do. Once you're good, activate the alarm and, well, same thing I've said so many times before in this guide, get to work on the scans, deal with the enemies, and once everything has been taken care of, you can then head into Zone 123. And inside this zone, there's not really a whole lot of unique stuff, aside from the fact that most of the enemies you come across are going to be giant strikers. So you can either just melee kill every single one of them stealthily the best you can, or if you have a ton of ammunition left over, you could just simply blast your way through it. A single person with a giant killing weapon like a choke mod shotgun or sniper or burst cannon can pretty easily make quick work of all these giants. But as you continue to make your way through it, you'll eventually find the security door that takes you to Zone 124. However, this security door is going to have an error alarm tied to it, and this error alarm will spawn in 3 regular strikers or shooters roughly every 50 seconds. So once you and your team are ready to go, activate that error alarm, do the full team scan, and then you can have some people who stay outside and defend, or you could just simply all rush in and then just keep an eye out from behind you. But somewhere inside Zone 124, you'll be able to find that HSU, although there are a lot of them in many different rooms, so good luck finding it. That terminal will definitely help you out if you happen to come across it. And also there will be your 3rd and final bulkhead key in here, so make sure you grab that before you leave. But once you have found the HSU, you can just activate the scan. It's not going to initiate anything special. And once you all group up and finish that full team scan, your secondary objective is completed. And assuming you have that bulkhead key in your possession, you can just simply backtrack your way into Zone 41 once again, and then go to the door control up above. That'll give you access to the rest of your main objective. Once you finish that scan, the security door to Zone 43 will unlock, which is at the far western side of the zone, and we can start making our way over to it. Before we talk about that door though, let's meet up with the people who are only watching the main objective portion of this guide, so we do not leave them behind. Alrighty, so continuing on with the rest of the main objective. We are now heading over to the security door to Zone 43, which is going to have a Class 5 diminished alarm tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, there are 2 different rooms enemies could possibly spawn from. One of the rooms being the one down below where that generator is, and the other one being up above where your bulkhead door control is. So what I recommend you do is make sure these 3 doors here are all shut, mined, and seafoamed, and then you can just position your sentry somewhere in the room with you facing towards the east. Once everything is set up, you can activate the alarm and get to work on the scans, and once every single one of them has been taken care of, you could just have 1 or 2 people stay outside who deal with the last few of the alarm door enemies, while 1 or 2 other people just head into the zone itself and start clearing it out. Because inside Zone 43, there are going to be a lot of different rooms, and throughout these rooms, there will be a single scout patrolling about, and a pretty fair amount of giant strikers. So make your way through here, dealing with the enemies, keeping out for resources. There is a power cell, which if you're doing the main objective only run, you could use that to get into that optional resource zone, which if you want to see the map overlay for it, here's a timestamp that will show you where I talked about it a little bit earlier in the run. But if you don't really care for it because you have plenty of resources, you could just simply ignore that power cell. As for the main reason you're in here though, you are looking for the password that you need to unlock the 3rd and final terminal for your main objective. And that password will be split across 2 different terminals inside of this zone. One of the terminals having the first 2 letters of the password, while the other one is going to have the last 2. So make your way through, hop on those terminals and see if it has more than 1 log. If it does, that's either the lore log that is somewhere inside the zone or is 1/2 of your password. And once you know what your password is, you could just pack up anything else you need in here and then quickly make your way back into Zone 39. If you did a prisoner efficiency run, this room is covered in infectious fog, by the way. I don't believe I mentioned that earlier. So use the fog turbine that you got earlier to make your way safely to that 3rd terminal. One person hops on, puts the password into it, and then they just extract the data from it and you're done. Once you've done that to all 3 terminals, your main objective will be completed, and that northern security door to Zone 44 is now going to unlock, and your extraction scan will be behind it. But of course, we have one last challenge before we can head into there, because that security door is going to have a Class 1 Sustain Diminished Alarm tied to it. And as you can see with the map overlay, there are a few different locations enemies could possibly spawn from. Now, if you're doing a main objective only run, that eastern spawn does not apply, so you can completely ignore it. And as for the western and the southern spawn, there are a few doors we could utilize. So these 3 doors I have highlighted on the map, you're going to want to make sure every single one of them is shut, mined, and seafoam. And then any leftover mines or seafoam you have, you could position anywhere in the room to just deal with enemies as they make their way to you. And you could probably place your sentry somewhere towards the bottom of that staircase, as that sustain scan is always going to be up above, so enemies who are coming after you will have to go up that staircase to actually get within attacking range. But once you have everything set up, you can activate the alarm and hold out for a bit. It is a pretty lengthy scan, but it's not really too difficult to defend against, as it is a diminished alarm as well. And once you have finished that scan, all you have to do is just have one person quickly run over to the door and open it up, while the other 3 people just defend against any of the enemies who are still left alive. And once that door opens up all the way, just quickly run into Zone 44. Your extraction scan will be at the back end of it, and this extraction scan is a pretty quick one. It's also a silent extraction, so no additional enemies are going to be spawning in. So you just simply hold out there against the few air alarm enemies, and once the scan gets to 100%, you are done and you have completed alternate R5A3. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R5A3 is the first level where password locked terminals show up. And while not a revolutionary mechanic by any means, it is a nice alternative to just simply fetching a color keycard or a power cell in order to progress further into the level. Sadly though, R5A3 was an extension level, so we don't really see much more of this mechanic until later rundowns. R5C3 is actually the only other mission in Rundown 5 that contains a password-locked terminal. But hey, again, we'll see it utilized a bit more once alternate Rundown 6 releases, which if you didn't see, 10 Chambers announced that they will be showing off the trailer for that rundown on August 23rd, so keep an eye out for that one. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that it was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If there are any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my lovely community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast, and you're looking to pick up some sweet merch. Until next time, you might want to bring some giant killing weapons with you to the next level, as we're going to be fighting a lot of big boys, and hopefully, I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video.